Hey, welcome to this Windows channel, and this is a video about privacy. We're going to take a look in a tour once again of the privacy settings in Windows 10. There have been some changes in the privacy settings since the November update, so we're going to actually revisit all of these settings. I think, I did a few videos about that in the first week or two of the release of Windows 10. And I think it's time to maybe revisit all of these settings and check out what they mean, what they do, and make you understand to what point these privacy settings can affect your computer usage, and also what they mean. And up to you after that to decide if you turn the settings on or off. So we will check out the general privacy settings in this video. Just go down to the notifications area on the bottom right, click all settings, go into privacy, and here is general tab. This is the general category. So what does these four sliders do? The first one, let apps use my advertising ID, experience across apps. Turning this off will reset your ID. Basically, when you log into Windows 10 with a Microsoft account, you are given an advertising ID. It is not something that can ID you, by the way. It is an advertising ID that knows what you like, what you search for, but it cannot be linked. Microsoft cannot say it's, oh, it's this guy, Gilles in Montreal, that always searches for that type of product. It is something that is used to help make advertising more interesting to you. We live in a world and on the internet where advertising is the main way of everything being paid. You pay your internet connection, but remember that everything that you do that's free is paid somehow. It ain't free. It's paid with advertisement. And personally, I like that way of working, because it gives us great, products, great websites, great information like these videos. And I think it's a cool way of, not having to pay for content just because there's advertisement. Now, the advertising ID, you don't have one if you are on a local account. That's the first thing you need to know. If you aren't on a Microsoft account, there's no advertising ID that is linked to you, because it is purely a feature with Microsoft accounts. What you can do is turn this off, but that doesn't mean you won't have advertising. That you got to know. What's going to happen is you'll just have less relevant advertising. So it means that, for example, when you go for searching for apps of specific apps, they can say, well, have you seen this app, this app, this app that are related? But if you turn it off, they're going to give you more random stuff because they don't know, they can't check out what you are really doing actually. So depending on what you want to do, you can turn it off. Like I said, this resets the ID, by the way. So if you turn it off and put it back on in a week, it's going to have to start all over learning about you again before it can display ads correctly. You notice that my sliders are all on because I'm not really scared of anything of those. And I really do not believe Microsoft uses this for any other reason than just making our Windows experience better. Second slider is send Microsoft info about how I write to help us improve typing and writing in the future. This is mostly, for example, if you have a Surface tablet or Surface PC, you have a pen and you can write using that pen. So one of the features is looking at how you write to try to make the experience better so that the computer can, for example, recognize what you just written on a piece of paper. We all write differently. Also, it has impacts on how we write when we type on the keyboard. Once again, all of us have different levels and skills of English or any language. I have very average skills in French, for example, which is a very difficult language to write. Basically what it does, it can check that and help in making, for example, um, the corrector, or when we type and there's the computer tries to help us in knowing how to write a certain word. So basically, it's going to check, and it's going to check the way we write and try to improve upon how it can suggest words, or it can suggest to correct a misspelled word and stuff like that. That once again means that, of course, there are some texts that we write that can be sent out to Microsoft in some way so that they can analyze it. But once again, there is no link to anyone, so they don't know from where it comes from. They just know, okay, this text we received is like this, and it seems that the spelling doesn't correct it correctly, or the spell checker, or whatever. It is anonymous. All of these settings are very anonymous, basically. Of course, they send information to Microsoft, but like I said, it's very anonymous. It's not as scary as people think. And finally, let websites provide locally relevant content by accessing my language list. So that simply means that it's going to check what language you are using and going to give you suggestions upon that. For example, I often use French, and what happens is when I go to websites, I do searches. French content and Canadian French content might show up first for me, because that's the main language that I use every day. And this, is not something new. It happened even on Windows XP. When you use your computer, the browser checks the language to try to give you, some relevant stuff in the language you want. And not only that, it also checks with that to give you the content of something that's near to you, if possible. If I order a pizza in French, I don't want to have a pizza from Paris. I want to have a pizza from my local pizzeria here in Montreal. So all of that helps. So by checking that I'm in French Canada, of course it's going to give me content from Quebec, the province of Quebec, probably. If I had French from France, it's normal they would give me some content from France. Now, like I said, this isn't new. This is something that's just now we have an option and a slider for on and off here, which is interesting. These settings are there to help you in some way. It's up to you, depending on what I just said, to, tell yourself which ones you want to turn on or off. Okay? That's for sure. And there's a fine line in the privacy here. Of course, we want our privacy, but we have to give a little in order for these features to work. And finally, I jumped over it. Turn on SmartScreen filter to check web content URLs that Windows Store apps use. The SmartScreen filter is a good thing in itself. Basically what it is, it checks every website that you go to make sure it's not a bad guy, to make sure it's not something that you should not go to. SmartScreen filter appeared in Internet Explorer in Windows 7, I believe, if not before. And the SmartScreen filter, as I think is a good thing, but it also means that it checks and sends URLs to Microsoft to check for. Once again, it's anonymous. There's nothing linked to you in here. Always remember that. These settings might look like, wow, they're checking everything I do. Yes, they are. And even if you turn these off, if you just use, for example, Google Chrome to go to the web and search Google, yes, they are still checking you. Microsoft is not checking you, but Google is checking you. There is always that option. They are using that information. And it's to try to give you more, useful information. Advertising ID. I'd rather have ads about things that I love than ads about things I don't care about. People don't think like that very often. If you have ads, why not have the ones at least that interest you? And Smart Screen Filter, this one is also applied to the Windows Store apps, as you see. Windows Store apps means that even the apps that you use in the store, they have to go on a website. If you download a news app, say you download the New York Times app, of course it goes to the New York Times website. It is linked to that information. So the Smart Screen will also check the apps where they go to, so that nobody can, for example, put an app in the Windows Store that would send you intentionally to a malicious website, for example. So these are all the settings that you can check for. Of course, there's the Manage by Microsoft Advertising and Other Personalization. It sends you out to a web page where you are logged into your account. At the left side, you have do you want, there's a slider on the right side here where you can disable the personalization of ads, including, you see, I'm in Google Chrome and it still suggests me to say yes or no to these options. And of course it has the connection here that you can click to go and check all the settings that you have in your Microsoft account, since most of these settings are always about Microsoft account. They of course give you all the details of how it works in the United States, in Europe, in Canada, and so you can check that out and maybe try to make yourself a better idea. And finally, of course, the privacy statement that in general says that Microsoft does not use any of that information against you. And so these are the first privacy options, the general tab. If you have any comments, questions, problems, let us know. Maybe you like our videos, well, why not give us thumbs up? Also, if you like our videos, you can subscribe. We post videos every day, and we'll be, of course, posting many videos about the privacy settings that are in the new November update of Windows 10. So thank you for watching. Thank you for following us. Hope you enjoy, once again, this little series on the privacy options of Windows 10 with the November update.